but we'll get started today. Thank you all so much for joining us. My name is Melissa Devlin, and I'm the Assistant Director here at the Grandfamilies and Kinship Support Network at Generations United. Thanks for joining us for our webinar today on improving outreach strategies to kinship families. If you haven't yet, please put your name and organization and role in the chat so we can see who's joining us today. And I want to mention that we are going to have a 30-minute Q&A that's going to start right after this webinar ends. We are going to be moving over to a more informal meeting format. So we'll have you log out of here and log into the Zoom meeting for our Q&A. We will be putting the link to that meeting in the chat. I know many of you are very familiar with us, but I would like to just take a minute before we kick off and let you all know a little bit about the Grandfamilies and Kinship Support Network if you're not already familiar. Next slide, please, Anna. Thank you. So we are part of a 5-year cooperative agreement with the Administration for Community Living. The Technical Assistance Center was formed through that cooperative agreement, and we are the first ever National Technical Assistance Center on Grandfamilies and Kinship Families. And the purpose of the network is to provide technical assistance and other support to tribes, states, and territorial government agencies, and as well as nonprofits across the country who are serving kinship families. And while we do not serve families directly, we do help all of you who are serving those families, and we believe those families can best be served by you in their own communities. You will see here on our graphic that these are all the different systems that we touch and intersect with and engage in our work. And here's some three key areas in which we provide support. We do individual technical assistance. My colleague Mari will be putting in the chat a link to a form that you can request help with. All of our assistance is free, and we can help you with a variety of different issues. If you need an example of a form that others are using, or you want to find out about policies that are happening in other states to serve kinship families, we do an array of help. So just reach out to us and we'll be happy to help you. We also are really proud to have a centralized hub through our website, which houses over 100 resources that are new within the last few years, newly developed, that elevate kinship practices and programs that are working with success, practical tips. We have an archive of all of our webinars on our website that you can go back and listen to, and presentations. So we have toolkits. So please, if you haven't already been on our website, you may go there and click on our resource library. You can find everything there. You can sort by topics, and also you can access through our events tab our archives of all of our webinars. We also provide information and resources through learning collaboratives. We have launched 5 different learning collaboratives in this past year. And actually, one of those are being featured here today. We did host a learning community on improving outreach strategies, and we are taking what we learned from that learning community and sharing all of that with you today. And here is a copy of our website homepage. You can see all the different sections that we have there. If you look at that request assistance button, you can click there and request for help. And our website address is at the bottom there, gksnetwork.org. And please bookmark it, because sometimes, you're doing some work and you're going, oh, I need help with this. And so if you have that bookmarked, you can go right there and get the help that you need. And then if you are not already receiving our monthly newsletter, you can scan the QR code that's here. Also, I think there will be a link put in our chat with a sign-up form. We send it out once a month. We do not send you multiple emails a month. And in that monthly newsletter, you'll get notified of all the newest resources that the network and our partners are putting out to help support you in that work, and also elevating some other programs and practices from around the country that are improving services and supports for kinship families. Also, if you are on LinkedIn, please follow us. We also use that as a vehicle to get up-to-date information out about all of the resources and events that the network is offering and hosting. Okay. And with that, I am going to turn it over to our wonderful presenters today. We have with us Kathy Kinsner, who is a senior manager at 0 to 3, and Deborah Mathis, who is a communications consultant at the National Caucus and Center on Black Aging. They are with two of our 5 major partners and have been leading our learning community and taking all the information that is learned, and they're developing a toolkit that we will be releasing soon from all of our learnings from that learning community, and have been just wonderful in sharing their own expertise in this work. So now I will turn it over to Kathy.
Hey, everybody. I cannot see you, but I'm very happy to see we have 73 people with us today. It's really our pleasure to share our findings from a learning community that started last spring and ended at the start of the school year. What we noticed in our work together over the past 3 years is that there are a number of organizations, including the Kinship Network, that have wonderful resources for grand families. And there are also grand families out there who are trying to access these resources, and they don't always connect. So the question that we were asking for each other is, how could we make this connection better? How could we find and engage grand families wherever they may be? We began this work with 20 participants who serve diverse populations across the country. And so with the idea of figuring all of this out, we met, as Melissa said, in 5 monthly hour-long sessions. Each of those was led by an expert, and the information that I'm about to share with you came from those experts. I will give them a shout out as we hit each section, and also say that any errors are mine, not the fault of the people who helped us out. And again, this webinar is a sneak peek at what will eventually be a preprint resource on our website. And we can take a look at the next slide. So we had 5 sessions. The first, which is not pictured here, is on overcoming barriers to serving grandparents. Our wonderful subject matter expert partner, Gail Engels, presented on this topic, and all of her words of wisdom will be included in the print resources. But for brevity, we've narrowed it down to the other 4 topics. We'll do partnering with schools, identifying local champions, developing a social media presence, and building trust. And you can go to the next slide. So our experts on partnering with schools were Dr. Barbara Boone at the Ohio Statewide Family Engagement Center, which is at The Ohio State University, and her colleague, Dr. Angela Tobin, from Kinship Caregivers Connect, which is also in Ohio. Next slide. And we're going to start you off today with a quick clip from Victoria Gray. Victoria and her husband raised 7 grandchildren as family members. Victoria, it was all surprising and difficult. One of the things that she mentioned to me is that once she had a family of 9 rather than 2, that they needed to buy a larger vehicle. And she went years actually without connecting with a grandparent support group. And here's what she had to say about that experience. And I want you to listen for what she says about schools.
So it was after my daughter got in trouble and we got her 5 kids and they were going to school, that the school sent home a plain white envelope to give to me. And in there was about grandparents raising grandchildren. This wasn't until like 2009 or 2010 that I found this group. And when I went to the group, I just sat there and cried because I didn't know that there was anyone else going through this. I didn't know there were solutions to certain things that I was going through. And it was very hard. And I sat there and I just cried. And as I began to talk about things, they were so supportive and they said, "Oh, I went through that. This is what you do." It was just amazing. I tell a lot of people that that first support group saved me because if I went in my backyard one more time screaming and crying, the neighbors were going to call the police. So they literally saved me. I started getting help, resources, and that made a big difference for us.
So our thanks to Victoria for sharing that with us. The amazing thing to me about that clip is the plain white envelope that came from the school, that she was on her own struggling, and suddenly there was this lifeline in somebody's backpack. So next slide, and we'll talk about how we can partner with schools. So we know there are really two places where we can find grand families. They are where the kids are. The first of those is the pediatric visits that happen from age birth to 5, and the other is in school. Dr. Tobin tells us that schools have a commitment to their students beyond their academic success. And she highlights for us some of the reasons why kinship families are so important and that schools need to know about all of these things. They're important for child well-being in terms of their safety, their stability, their permanency, mental and behavioral health outcomes, improved attendance, academic performance, and also having greater connection to their culture and their family identity than children in non-relative care. Next slide. So we've got a real opportunity here to educate educators about the grand families in their midst. And somebody pointed out to us in our learning collaborative that their jurisdiction covers many school districts. So connecting with them all can be a bit of a job. But the first thing you need to know is how are the districts organized, and think about the titles of the people who might be able to help. I have a little list here. It might be the person in charge of student support services or vulnerable youth populations or special education. Also, some of the titles that indicate that a school employee is community facing, like director for partnerships or family engagement or community relations. At the school level, the school counselor might be a good place to start. And also principals, assistant principals, family liaison, or ambassadors can be good possibilities. And one of the things, and this is a really good idea in terms of, I think, the nature of sort of inserting yourself into an organization that already has a big job to do, is think first about how you can make this person's job easier when they see you coming. Either Dr. Tobin or Dr. Boone said, I don't want them to run the other way. I'm going to ask them for something, but how can I also be a resource for them? So you want to know what value you add and where you can sort of plug into the organization that already exists. Next slide. You can also help schools understand grand families' needs. And first of all, kinship family or grand family, those are our terms, and school districts might not use them. So talking about, well, here's what we mean when we use these terms. Schools also need to know that there's an opportunity here to assist families by partnering with other professionals. Schools may not be aware of the unique dynamics of kinship families. They might not know the legal obstacles families face to school enrollment. They may be unaware that a lot of these kids are coming to them having experienced trauma at a very young age. Next slide. So thing one is to engage the schools in identifying grand families. Thing two, promoting your own services. Because the huge majority of grand families are not part of the foster care system, we don't know who they are. But we can have some ideas about who picks the child up after school, who signs permission slips, who shows up at conferences. And caregivers will also be part of the team that advocates for educational supports, special ed plans like 504 plans or individualized education programs. What I'd like you to do at the moment is in the chat, please post how your organization engages with schools. What have you found to work? What's been successful? Please do post in the chat. We would love to hear what's worked for you. And in the meantime, Anna, let's go to the next slide and we'll talk about the three-tiered approach. So a three-tiered approach will be well known to a lot of organizations that serve lots of kids. Pediatric practices might use it, schools might use it. And the idea here is that you're starting on that very bottom big base of the pyramid where you can reach a large number of people. This is the low-hanging fruit. You can share flyers and fact sheets, connect through emailing lists and social media, and be a presence at school and community events. Tier two is your homing in on the population that most needs help. One of the things that you can do once you are in and a partner with a school is provide professional development on what's a grand family and what do they need. The network has a 90-minute free professional development tool. It has slides, it has videos that called Grandfamilies 101 that talks about the legal, educational, and financial issues that grand families face. So if you find yourself in a place where a school needs more information, it's all there on the website and you can just, review and create a professional development opportunity for a school. You can provide our toolkits and strategies. You can connect individually with school professionals. And finally, at the tippy top, co-creating supports for kinship families. You can do grand family support groups, programs, and events that focus on kinship care, identify and connect caregivers to resources, and also in the ideal and best partnership, enlist caregivers to help co-create programming. And I see we've got a long list of help here. I'm gonna take a look and I'll read you some if you didn't see them. Some schools have kinship. Oops, sorry. Going back up. We presented to school district and counselors. Some have kinship support groups. Attending school district meetings for foster youth and homeless youth in order for them to remember our services. I didn't actually realize there are meetings like that. That's a great suggestion, Oyana. Work with the clubs in the schools. Hi, Angela. Please jump in if we misrepresent anything that you said. Happy to hear any additions you have for us. Asking for a location for programs, great. There is lots of community space in a school that could be used for meetings. Attend IEP meetings. Yeah, that's a perfect suggestion. One of the things that Victoria Gray mentioned to us is this was her advice to grandfamilies, don't go to an IEP meeting, a special ed planning meeting alone. It will probably have several people from the school. You will be feeling their expertise if you're a kin caregiver. Bring somebody along who can keep you calm and take notes. Back to school get-together, says Monica. Awesome. Meet with different liaisons for the district. Those were less successful in getting more referrals than being able to present at a staff meeting. Shannon's point is great because the schools know their kids. Often you have to start at the top with administrators so that you've sort of done your due diligence and people aren't feeling protective of their territory, but it is at a school level that people know what's going on. A partnership with Title I schools, reach to school counselors. You guys are awesome. Free trainings for the staff. Again, Grandfamilies 101 on our website is your friend. Principal meetings. Oh, this is great. Schools with great resources for food, clothing, helping families apply. It's super great. How the parents engage with school, volunteer, PTA membership, school counseling. I think you guys have covered it. Let's go to the next slide and Deborah will talk about identifying local champions. Thanks.
Thank you and welcome everyone. Your faces aren't showing, but your conscientiousness is because you're here. We know that you already are devoted to this cause and to this work. And we applaud you for that and thank you on behalf of a grateful society, or what should be a grateful society, for the work that you're doing. Some of what we are going to present today is kind of like in the duh range. I mean, you already know this. You've been doing some of it. But what I know from many years of working is, get a second wind or something, get re-inspired.
Deborah, I'm
So I
sorry,
hope that if you are ready, yeah,
Deborah, you're
yes.
freezing up a little bit, so you might want to turn your camera off.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Boy, face only a mother could love.
I know, sorry.
So, thanks a lot. So,
Sorry, Deborah, we still can't hear you for some reason.
wow. I don't know
Okay,
what to
now we can hear
say.
you. We can hear
Okay.
you now.
All right. Teresa Laurie English is the executive director of the Shelby County Relative Caregivers Program in Memphis, Tennessee. And Marsha Rose is executive director of the Kinship Navigator Program Area Office on Aging of Northwest Ohio. And so those are our two experts that spoke with the learning community about this issue of identifying local champions or partners. Next slide. One of the first things that we learned was that we should try and match community organizations with the client's needs. Here you see a woman with a basket of fresh vegetables. And We use this slide because one of the ideas that Teresa English from Memphis shared with us was that her organization approached the local farmers market and said, you know, we have these families that are strained financially and they're doing the Lord's work, trying to raise their grandchildren or their grandnieces and nephews, or the younger brothers and sisters in some cases. And they could use some help, and wouldn't it be wonderful if you could do something? And that farmers market did. It provides now once a month, I believe it is, um, a, a basket full of fresh fruit for each family. I'm sorry, it's every other week for those families and for free. Now, you know, that was kind of maybe a bold approach, but as we will see later on, that's what it takes sometimes. It takes kind of, you know, being a little brazen with it. You can still be polite, but you have to go ahead and make that ask. So there's an example of what do they need that we can't or we are not providing now or not providing enough of. Well, who is providing that? Slide. And so let's make a wish list of the resources and the services that your families need, but your program does not, or maybe not, is even allowed to provide. Is it food assistance? Is it respite care for caregivers? Oh boy, that's a big one. Clothing for the children, recreation for the children or just the whole family, mental health care, another frequent need, tutoring services, just something basic like diapers for babies or formula or something. Let's get the wish list together of what would really help these families prosper and see what might match that in the community and then approach. Next slide. I love this one. Seek sponsorship for big events. You see these kids here? These kids are raised by grandparents. They are dressed up. He's in a tux, she's in an evening gown. They brought together all of these children for an annual gala. The children learn from a choreographer. They take formal waltz lessons. It's almost like a cotillion or a debutante ball, the way it's presented. Each one gets up and speaks in honor of their caregiver and presents them with roses or other gifts. The formal attire is provided by the program from its budget and donations. But as Laurie English said, they also have called upon local tuxedo outlet places and local department stores who have donated some of this clothing. So these children have a chance to dress up, feel special, look special, and at the same time do something nice for their caregivers. And what they did was get several big companies in town to underwrite this whole shebang. You know, the rental for the venue, the catering, the decorations, everything, even transportation. So there's an idea that kind of answers two issues, I think. One is that they need a break. They need something to lift their spirits. They need some recognition. That's taken care of here. And you know, the other thing is that they get a chance to express something to the people that love them and that they love. So there's some possibilities. The local utility companies, I know they you know, they have a pot for this, right? They have money to do charitable things. Sometimes, you know, you may not be on their radar, or grandfamilies and kinship families may not have even occurred to them. So approach them, the grocery stores, local retailers, sports organizations that may have a special night where they can bring, you know, for the families can come for free and have a nice time. So this, you know, this helps in on so many fronts. Next slide, please. Here it is, the make the explicit ask. You know, when I was a kid and I'm old, so we used to do stuff like go around and with these March of Dimes cards to raise money for the March of Dimes, and it literally had 100 little slots for dimes. And I just was always real shy about asking anybody for money, and even a dime. You know, my parents ended up having to fill up all the slots so I could get credit for doing something. But you know, I'm much older now, and I realized that what I didn't realize at that time is that this wasn't for me. I was supposed to be doing this for something greater than me. And so maybe that will embolden any of you who may be a little reticent to go and make these asks, but it pays. Marsha Rose told us in her case in Northwest Ohio that they had asked the local zoo for, you know, about some memberships, free memberships. And a private donor actually had provided 40 family memberships for free to their program. And then those memberships expired, and the zoo contacted Marcia and said, well, you know, we don't have a private donor now, your memberships are expired, but we want to provide you. We, the zoo, want to provide you with those 40 memberships and renew it. And she told them, well, this is great. But then she said, I asked them if they'd be willing to sponsor more. And they did. So you never know. And again, you can take comfort in the fact that you're doing it for somebody else, not for you. If you are, some of you may be some bold folks already and have no problem asking for this. Touche. All right, next slide. This is also from Ohio, and these are organizations that that have local events. These events occur every year, and the recommendation is that you get out into the community when you can and network with some of these groups and see what they have going, and if there's a way that you could that there's something that they might be able to provide for the families that you're serving, or one member of that family. You know, go to the local festivals such as these. One is called the Honey for the Heart Festival, and the other is the Lake Snowden fair festival that occurs every year. Both of those are in southeastern Ohio, but you have something there too, wherever you are, I'm sure, and you may want to approach them and see if there's some way you can fit in. In other words, this is just kind of thinking outside the old box, to use a brand new term. Next slide, please. All right. So I hope that that is helpful, and I hope that it inspires some of you to again, think creatively, think boldly, make the ask, try to do find out where the holes are and what that family needs, and see what's local that might be able to fill those holes, and then ask them to do it. Thank you.
Thanks,
Patty?
Deborah. Thanks, Deborah. The March of Dimes collection sounded very familiar.
Yeah.
I was I asked for so many things, sold so many things when I was a kid that I think people hid when they saw me coming up the driveway. Let us turn our attention to developing a social media presence. And the expert on this was Dr. Ali Caliendo at Nevada Foster Kinship. Her organization covers the entire state. They are there for foster or kinship families who are, I think, not part of the foster care system on a can correct me on that if I'm wrong. And they have done a whole lot with social media, and a lot of it has been by trial and error. So we're going to walk through what some of those trials and errors were. While I'm talking about this, I would like to hear in the chat what you guys are doing on social media. What platforms have you found successful in reaching families or community members? And we'll do the next slide. So the big deal is to figure out who your intended audience is and choose the platform that reaches them. This is actually 0 to 3's diagram, what our communications department has come up with in terms of how each platform is useful. LinkedIn for the outreach to professionals, thought leadership, events and webinars, Instagram for visual first approach, current events, trends, inspiration. And Facebook we'll spend a lot of time on today. It's really a sweet spot for audience engagement. Twitter, now X, for real-time updates. And one note there is that there's been a real drop-off in membership on X, so we don't know quite where that's going or how things will fall out in the near future. TikTok, pop culture as it relates to your subject, and Threads, which I just heard from somebody in the communications department today. We at 0 to 3 are finding more and more engagement with. I am not at all hip, as you might be able to tell, and I'm not on there yet, but I'm told that's up and coming. 2 things to note here, and this pretty much exhausts my personal knowledge of social media engagement. Reach is the potential audience who can see your content, and often even more important is engagement. So it's not just people who are scrolling through and passing you by, but an audience that interacts with your content. They like it, they comment on it, they share it with other people. Next slide. So Dr. Caliendo talked a lot about trying different approaches on social media to increase the likelihood of broad engagement. Craft posts for different audiences and figure out what works. Foster Kinship in Nevada posts twice a day, one video or reel, and one print post that often has a text with a link. And I'll show you here some of the things they've been doing. So this slide says, consider a private Facebook page to offer information specific to your location. And I'll tell you how this came about. First of all, Facebook, great. Most clients already have access to it on their phone or computer. It's really great for announcing events or getting community support for your efforts. You can also use Facebook paid ads, which Ali really called my attention to. I do not know much about that. For example, if Foster Kinship wants to reach their rural areas in Nevada, they can use a zip code along with some other demographic information, like maybe they want to reach people over 55 and really target their output to the audience that they're trying to reach. On the left here is Foster Kinship's public page. They had a couple of really cute memes about a haunted house at Halloween, what's scary, very appealing to kin caregivers, rooms full of mismatched socks and half filled out forms. What they've found in posting to a general audience on Facebook, though, is that it reaches people all across the nation. And as soon as people see a post about kinship care, if you were in the chat rooms, you already know this, people are jumping on with very specific advice. My grandchild is in this situation. What do I do? And what's difficult is people will answer, and they don't always know what they're talking about. It's especially hard to keep track of specific guidance when the rules vary so much from state to state and jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So what Foster Kinship did is they created a private Facebook page that is only for residents of Nevada and only for people currently caring for a relative or close family friend. So now, as you see in the little peach box here, they're able to really have answers that are very tailored to this audience. These are quotes that I pulled off there. Just curious if anyone has gone through this with some difficulty they're having, maybe regarding a custody hearing or something. Looking for an emergency pediatric dentist that takes Medicaid. That's probably in Las Vegas, because that's where most of their people are. And again, probably in Las Vegas. My mom is having a yard sale with lots of great baby items at great prices. So what they do, and this is super cool, is if you are working in a social work or case manager capacity at Foster Kinship, you can leave Facebook open all day long at work. And your mission, part of your job, is to, when someone has a question, jump on and answer it in a way that's appropriate to Nevada residents. They don't allow anyone onto the private page who works in child welfare because they want people to feel free to talk about issues that are experiencing without fear that they're going to be reported to an agency. They also use the private Facebook group, next slide, to advertise things of interest to families. The yellow flyer that you see on the right advertise free meal distribution at Thanksgiving, and Allie says that she could put this on the private page and 100 meals will be snapped up in 15 minutes. On the left is the public facing page, and this was a little video that was posted right after Halloween. And the idea was that Halloween is over and we already are getting requests from families for what they'd like for Christmas. With your generosity, we can make their dreams come true. So here you see that there's a really specific use they're making of each kind of Facebook page. They also put general advice on the private group, talk about their hours, their phone number, how else they can be reached. So this really is often the first step in connecting with an individual family. And let's see what else. Might be a couple more here, Anna, before we turn. As I mentioned, kin caregivers have to live in Nevada so that they can provide state-specific information. The staff monitors the content for accuracy and to make sure the group is safe for candid conversations. Employees of child welfare agencies are not allowed. Big caveat, a group like this only works if there's someone on the staff that can jump in to answer questions and provide the right resources to respond to caregivers' needs. Next slide. Here's one that I never would have known if Allie hadn't presented to us. Apparently, you can easily create videos on TikTok and export those to other platforms. So while it sounds like a tremendous amount of work to post a video every day, It has an easy interface for recording, and then you can send it up to other places like as a story on Facebook or a reel on Instagram. So that is a huge help. And finally, old school but very effective, include newsletters in your outreach strategies. Families are invited to sign up for a newsletter during their intake assessment. I think most do. Allie is also experimenting with how to make this work better because currently it's published monthly, and she admits to it being long. There's a letter from the executive director and info from different departments. They're thinking about if briefer, more frequent, more targeted newsletters would work better. Their newsletters are designed using Canva, which you can use an introductory account for free, and manage through Constant Contact. And you will note that my newsletter example is not Allie's, it is ours. And with that, I turn it back to Deborah for building trust.
Thank you. I'm going to try to stay on for a second, but if I have to take my picture off again, I will. In building trust, we relied upon the
Deborah, it's sorry,
advice and
Deborah.
experience of Benasha Shineberry, who is, here I go. Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can
Are
hear
you
you.
hearing me now? Not? Okay. Well, I'm so sorry, everyone. Okay. National Caucus and Center is Healthy Grandparents, which is on the campus and a project of the Department of Nursing. Amazing woman, as is Star Hagen, who is with the Port Gamble Slalom, the way it's pronounced, I looked it up, Tribe Kinship Parenting Program in Washington State. They were the experts we relied on for this particular session. Next slide, please. Okay, again, some of this seems, you would think it goes without saying, but I'm not sure always. Sometimes our customer service, so to speak, can be a little lax. One key thing is to be reliable. Do what you say you'll do, which means, of course, we cannot overpromise if we want to really build,
Deborah, we're still having a hard time
because
hearing
we
you.
need to do things. Trust is a very delicate thing, as we all know. Some people offer it at first sight. I used to be that way. I'm going to trust you unless you show me some way not to. Lately, I've not become so much that way. But these families in particular have an understandable reluctance to trust someone, I would think. It's understandable because this is someone coming into their private lives, in the most private pockets of their life, their family life, their homes, their habits, their capacities, and asking all manner of questions that really can feel very intrusive. So I think there's a natural drawback from that kind of thing, and building trust so that you can serve them appropriately and as you want to serve them, and make sure that they will continue engaging with you. Building trust is so important, about as important, I guess, maybe even more so than going to your doctor. Um, People are afraid of losing their children. There's so much misunderstanding and ignorance in many cases about how the system works. And so people often think they're thrown into these circumstances unexpectedly, in many cases, suddenly, in many cases, alarmingly, in many cases. And now here's someone that comes along and says, I need to see how you're doing this, or I need to see what you need. Either one of those things still feels like, who are you? So how do I know that you're not going to try to take these kids away from me? And even if that's not in the cards, so to speak, that's the underlying fear of so many families, so many caregivers. So building trust is obviously important, and keeping your word is one of them. So avoiding overpromising or painting too rosy a picture is key. Next slide. When it is possible, try to hire staff. Again, this is not me talking. These are these experts talking from their experience and their many years of it. Hire staff that reflects the community that you're serving, or the families that you're serving. If you have a community that has several ethnicities, several subcultures, so to speak, shared culture, language, lived experience are just priceless. That is a great door opener to trust. Like me, you lived like me, you speak like me, you
Deborah, I think we
someone who
lost you.
appears at least to, geez. All right, I think this speaks for itself. On this shared culture language, this to me is a big one, and so it was to our experts. Vet your resources that you rely upon, that you are referring your families to. Make the process as easy as possible for them. As Vanasha says, and I quote, just giving families a name and a number of a service provider may not be helpful. If they had the time to do it, they would have done it. If they knew how to do it, they would have done it. Make it easy for them to access the resources. Families may need you to work with them to fill out an application or enter it into the computer. I realize that time, caseload may not be as helpful as
Deborah, we're still having a hard time hearing you. I'm sorry.
but if you can still, I'm trying.
Hey, Deborah,
I'm glad we have these slides because
I
wow.
have the text if you want me to take over for a bit since I can be heard. Up to you.
I guess so, because I don't want to keep putting all of you all through this. I can't tell when I'm dropping out, so
You
yes.
are so close to the end. I will be happy to finish up and we'll have you back for the
Please.
questions, okay? So the whole vetting resources thing, if any of you have ever had a need for medical or social services for a loved one, not having your time respected is crushing. Families often have to make arrangements for childcare, for transportation, take time off work, and you want to do everything possible to make sure they'll get what they need when they arrive. So before you make a referral, check out the place you're referring to. Here are some of the questions that you can ask and pass on to families. Are there any income restrictions to be eligible for services? What's the application process like? How long will it take the families to begin receiving services? How difficult is the enrollment or registration process? What forms and documents do they need to bring with them? What are the benefits of participating? And if they participate in one program, will they lose the opportunity to receive benefits from another program? The quote that Vanasha gave about if they knew how to do it, they would already have done it. Yes, I see somebody asking about putting those questions in the chat, and I will. Finally, close to finally, don't take family frustrations personally. You don't know what happened to them before they got to you. Social service professionals frequently hear things like, I'm so sick of y'all. Everybody is the same. No one listens to me. I've been telling this story over and over again. What are you going to do that's different? So you'll hear frustration, and it will be about something that happened 2 weeks ago or 3 months ago, and keeping a calm, mindful demeanor and knowing it's not about you is important. Finally, there was a discussion from the group about what to do when you get ghosted. Families may find themselves overwhelmed and not able to attend a meeting routinely. Maybe somebody said something to them at a previous meeting that offended them. Terry Rodriguez from Catholic Charities of Lubbock told us sometimes caregivers don't call. They don't communicate to you. They'll just ghost you. I've actually mailed a personal letter to say, hey, it's just me checking up to see how you're doing. If I can help you with anything, just let me know. I'm here. I put my business cards in there so they know exactly who it is. And she's even stopped by when she's in the neighborhood to come personally and swing by and say, hey, anything you need? I wanted to come and drop this item off to you, just check up on you. And Banasha talked to us a little bit about dealing with uncomfortable situations directly. So asking grandparents if there was something that could have been done differently. Was there something that was said? Is there a reason why you're not attending it, and what can we do to fix it? Vanasha also said we make sure we are clear on the rules for the group and that we hold people accountable for the things that they say. To me, that's being real and addressing an issue instead of sugarcoating it or covering over it. And with that, I think we are back to you, Melissa.
Great. Thank you so much, Deborah and Kathy. We really appreciate it. I have captured some of the questions that were put in the chat, and I will bring those over to our Zoom meeting. We want to have a more informal meeting versus a webinar. We could see everyone and have more of a dialogue and spend a few minutes on Q&A with the presenters, and also share your experiences with each other too, because you all have that as well. So if you check over in the chat right now, you will see the link to that webinar. I'm sorry, to that meeting. So please join us over there, and we will see you in a couple of minutes. Kathy and Deborah, thank you so much for all of that. And to everyone who contributed the information and resources for this presentation, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
We'll see you
folks.
over
See
at
you
the
in the other
next
room.
session. See you over in the next session. Thank you.